doubts. When was the last time you had a doubt? Big one? Little one? You know what I'm talking about. Something you fear? That hesitation? Some confusion? Uncertainty? And sometimes it can be serious, and sometimes it's not quite as serious. Let me give you one example in my life. I travel a lot, been in a whole bunch of countries. I had a chance to be in the Philippines a number of times. One of my trips there, when I was speaking and playing drums and doing all kinds of other things, we were traveling from island to island, and most of the time we were flying. Well, we were in this one position in situation, I guess, and my traveling partner, William, who was my translator, said, we're not going to fly this time to get to the other islands. He said, we're actually going to be taking a ship. And in my mind, I'm going, ooh, cruise ship, buffets, pools, saunas. I mean, this is going to be great. But I never mentioned that to William. So we take a jeepney, which is kind of like a Jeep with a back on it, and it's really crowded. And so we take that down to the harbor. And I'm looking like crazy, like, where's the ship? I didn't see a ship. I saw like a boat kind of thing that looked like it had been nuked and put back together with, duct tape or something. And I said, William, where's the ship? Right there. And I'm having doubts. It's like, no, Steve is not doing this. That is not a ship. And I noticed that in order to board the ship, there's a 2x6 plank that's probably 12 feet long. And it's resting on part of the boat, and it's on an edge of the dock. And that's how you were supposed to board the ship. I'm having doubts, lots of doubts now. And William goes, what's the problem? I said, big guy, little plank, little boat. He goes, oh, come on. And he grabs my suitcase and then yanks my arm, and we kind of run down this plank. Okay. So we find a place to sit. I thought, okay, I'm just going to chill. So there's this guy that boards the boat, and he looks like he's some kind of military dude. You know what I mean? He's got the epaulets, he's got the hat, the white, thing, and all that stuff, the white suit. And he's walking around, he's got this clipboard, and he's asking people questions. And he gets within earshot, and he's asking their name and where they're from. So he gets to us, and we were the last ones, he asks us. So he walks up the plank, they pull that out, the boat, ship, whatever you want to call it, starts chugging into the harbor. And I said, William, what was up with that dude? Did they take him like a survey or what? He goes, oh no, brother. He said they've got to have a list of who's on board in case the ship sinks. Oh, the doubts are really going now. It's like they're happening so fast, it's almost like like there's a fan going. And I said, how often do the ships sink? He goes, oh, a couple times a month anyway. He goes, just relax. I was uncertain. I was having doubts. I was having fears. But it's interesting. We make all kinds of decisions that can create doubts. I saw something the other day, and I've got to go back and verify it. It's like we make 35,000 decisions. Is that in a day? Or an hour? I mean, my mind works pretty fast, but I'm not making those numbers of decisions. But it's really important. I love this series. If we can get a grasp on how to live life better, how to overcome fear, how to overcome anxiety, doubts, stress. It's a great, Chris, I love what you've done with this, and thanks for letting me be part of this. But life is such a brief time. It's a mist. That's what it says in James 4:14. It's like a mist or a fog. Just a couple of weeks ago, I lost my favorite aunt. She was like a second mom to me. And I'm still having trouble. She lived to be 86, okay? And I'm still having trouble that she's gone. I actually have 2 voicemails still on my phone from her. And they're going to stay there. I'm not ready to listen to them right now. But life is here today, gone tomorrow. That quick. You blink and you go, whoa, what happened for the last 10 years? But you know what's great? It's cool. It's amazing. Doubt, along with fear, along with anxiety, along with stress, don't last for an eternity. They're over. When we leave this life and we make our move to heaven, those of us that have a relationship with God, those of us who are truly a child of God, that stuff is gone. It's history. It is no more. But we got to deal with it here. Where do doubts come from? Other people? Ourselves. Have you noticed that? Your mind can kind of play tricks on you. And you start having these doubts. You're in a situation and it's just real easy to be uncertain. And it's a little confusing, and you throw fear in there. But doubts also come from the enemy of our souls. We don't like to talk about that very much. The devil, Satan, whoever you want to call it, however you want to name him, he's got a number of names, biblical names. So there's different sources, and I think at times it's important for us to determine where the doubts are coming from. And I think in one sense, people say the meanest things, and it sticks with you. Now, I had to take a speech communications class when I was a freshman in college. I was studying pre-law, okay? I know that sounds like really weird, but some of you, I don't know if any of you have ever heard this story. I come from a big Italian family. My grandfather was a godfather. He was a mafia boss. And I had to meet with him when I was a senior in high school to determine what I was going to do for my career. And I knew I wanted to be a musician, and that was not going to be acceptable to the family because they were afraid I was going to be some drunk guy laying in a gutter because I couldn't get a gig. And so my grandfather gave me 3 choices. He said, you can be a priest, so that when the guys get shot and killed in some kind of a skirmish or whatever, you can bury them. I said, Grandpa, not going to be a priest, okay? You can forget that one. But you had to be careful what you say to Big Ernie. And then secondly, he said, you could be a doctor. So why a doctor? He goes, well, to patch up the guys that get stabbed or shot. He goes, then there's no questions asked. But Grandpa, I'm not going to spend half my life in school. And he goes, well, then you could be an attorney. You could be our family consularian. I thought, okay, I could be the family advisor. And, so that was kind of the path I went. I ended up dropping out of school, doing music, went back to school. That's a whole other story. But in this speech class, I could hear my professor to this day saying this. Mr. Russo, could I see you please after class? Mr. Russo, sit down. I don't know how to tell you this. I'm just going to be really blunt. She goes, I need to tell you, there's one career you never, ever, ever, ever should pursue, okay? Don't ever think about being a public speaker. I'd like to find her now, because that was actually just months before I surrendered my life to Jesus. And everything changed after that. And if you haven't done that yet, that's the most important thing you can ever do, and it will help you deal with all these things we've been talking about in the series. But there's been times when I've got up to speak and I've heard her voice. It's just that little, but that's the kind of stuff the enemy likes to use in our lives. Doubt and faith really are, you could say they're part of the same coin, one side and the other side. You could say that they're laced together, they're connected, they're tied together. Everybody has doubts. I don't care who you are. The strongest, most awesome, amazing follower of Jesus has doubts. Okay? And you may think somebody like walks on water and, they're perfect. They got doubts too. The Bible is littered, if you want to use that word, with people expected to have doubts. There's one that comes to it's kind of the front of my mind. I don't know if you've ever heard of somebody named Job or read the book of Job in the Old Testament. If you haven't, I'd encourage you to. This guy had it all and lost it all. Of course, it's a little different situation because Satan went to God and said, hey, this dude Job, he's really does all the right thing, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I want to sift him. I want to try him out. And God said, okay. But he put him in a box and said, you can only do so much. I mean, Job's friends, closest friends are going, hey, dude, when are you going to give up on this God? The doubts flooding his life. You ever feel like that? Let's take a look at Mark chapter 9, verse 23. Now, watch what this says. This is a conversation, I'll preface this, Jesus is having with a father whose child was demon-possessed, and the father wanted Jesus to heal the child. And the father uses a statement, if you can, this question. Imagine questioning Jesus. I'm not sure I could talk to Jesus if he was standing right here. It's like I'd want to get on my face and, kind of crawl someplace where he wouldn't really notice me. So this father, and you can kind of understand that, has doubts. And he says, Jesus, if you can. What is Jesus' response? Everything is possible for one who believes. Everything, not some things, not select things, but everything is possible. Immediately, verse 24, the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. I love this story because what Jesus is doing, Jesus is affirming to you and to me that doubt is not the absence of faith. Did you catch that? You can have faith and still have doubts. And Jesus affirms that. Jesus said, listen, here it is, okay? You can have doubts. And that doesn't mean you've lost your faith. That doesn't mean you're fickle. That doesn't mean any of that stuff. It's okay. Doubt is not the absence of faith. Now, I don't know if you've put this together yet in your own life, but God is big enough to handle all of our doubts, okay? Because I doubt as well at times. Let that soak in. I don't know what doubt you're dealing with, but God is bigger than all of your doubts. Men and women, when was the last time you asked God to help you in your unbelief? Maybe that's something you've never thought about. Maybe you've never read this passage we just looked at. And maybe you've always thought, I don't dare say that to God. I mean, he's going to wonder what's wrong with me. And trust me, he knows us better than we know ourselves. And it's okay. It's okay to say to God, God, I believe, but you got to help me with my unbelief. I've done that. And I need to do it more. It's okay, people, to ask God that question. So when you stand in front of the mirror, what are the doubts that are going through your mind? When you're sitting in the classroom at school, what are the doubts that you're dealing with? What are those things that come back at you from the mirror? Is it the future? Are you having doubts about the future? And you know what? That's an easy thing to have right now with the condition of our world. I mean, it's hard to know what's going to happen next. And having gone through the pandemic, but it isn't ending, but it's supposed to be, and I keep hearing people say, we're going back to normal. What is normal? It's easy to have doubts about the future. And don't think you're the only one, please. What about relationships? Are you getting grief from friends? Do you feel alone? Do you wonder if you're ever going to have somebody to date, somebody that likes you? Do you doubt your abilities? Maybe you feel like, I don't have anything special I can do. I lack abilities. There's just nothing about me. What about purpose in life? That's so big today. Do you have doubts about your purpose in life? Why am I here? Do you have doubts that you are valuable, that you matter to someone? A lot of someone's? Do you ever doubt God's love? Do you have doubts about trusting the Bible? Other people have those doubts or have had those doubts, okay? Now, I want to wrap things up because we could spend a lot of time talking about this topic. But let me just give you some things to consider, okay, when it comes to dealing with doubts. Remember, you can have doubts and still have faith. Now watch this. A doubt or doubts can cause us to rethink what's going on in our life, to reevaluate, and that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing. So if that's where you are and you're having this doubt or multiple doubts, rethink, reevaluate. Here's another one. Not having doubts about God, watch this, is unhealthy. Yeah, you heard me. If you don't have doubts about God, it's unhealthy for you. Because it causes us to kind of just cruise along, and we're just, instead of really evaluating, thinking through, revaluing, having a time to look at our life from another perspective. And here's what we're dealing with. There's a tension. Watch this tension. We're dealing with a God who knows everything. Psalm 147:5 says that God's understanding is beyond comprehension. And then we compare that to our limited knowledge. That's a tension. That's a tough tension to deal with. But it's okay if you're working through it, if you're wrestling through it. Okay, a couple other things, and then we'll say goodnight. Proverbs 3:5. Let's take a look at this verse. Proverbs 3:5. You may have read it before. If you haven't, I hope you will. This is a verse that, there's so many verses worth memorizing, but this is a great one. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Life is going to get confusing. There's going to be doubts. There's going to be uncertainty. But trust in the Lord with all your heart. That is not something that happens instantaneous. That's something that happens over a lifetime. And don't rely upon your own understanding. That's the amazing thing. We have a God who knows everything. He's not a know-it-all, but he knows everything. He comprehends beyond our imagination. Trust can be difficult sometimes. In a variety of ways. I went through a doctorate level leadership program, and one of the things we had to do, we went to different places in the country for a week at a time, and we read books and wrote papers and stuff. But part of this, believe it or not, they wanted us to rappel down an 85-foot cliff. I don't like heights. And so we all, we can get up there because there's a way to get up there. And I'm watching my friends put the little diaper thing on, the carabiners, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going, in my mind, I'm having doubts. I'm going, ain't no way you're doing this, Steve. There is nobody can force you to do this. I do not want to do this. I have doubts I'll even survive it. And then my friends started, oh, what's happening there, big Italian stallion? That's my nickname. Oh, Stallion doesn't have the guts to do this. Okay. And then the stupidity comes. And it's easy for me, it comes often. And I put the stuff on, and a friend of mine leans over and goes, Russo, the first step is the hardest. And I took the first step. And then I'm bouncing down this thing. Yeah, see, Stallion can do it. What do you have doubts about? Let me give you a couple quick things, and then we'll pray. Let me give you 2 promises out of God's Word that we, because we all need to do this, we can build our lives on, we can cling to, we can hang to. Isaiah 41:10, the Old Testament book of Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Let me stop real quick there. Did you hear that? That's not conditional. It's not, I'll be with you when I feel like it. I'll be with you when you want me. God says, don't fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Men and women, that is a huge promise to hang on to. And again, worth memorizing. Another passage, Old Testament again, Jeremiah 29:11. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. If you are having doubts about the future, if you are having doubts about a purpose in life, if you are having doubts that you matter, that there is value to you, this verse will shut those down. But you got to cling to God's promises. And don't forget something, people. This is a lifelong process. We're not going to reach this point in life and no more doubts, no more anxiety, no more stress, no more fear. It's a lifetime journey, okay? It's a lifetime journey. I don't know if you can see what's on this piece of paper, but it says doubt. Here today, gone tomorrow. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for Chris and the other leaders. Thank you for the students that are here. Thank you for this church. Thank you for your word that we can rely upon. Lord, help us to cling to the promises of your word, to recognize that you are every place with us. And if we trust you, if we learn to do this on a daily basis, and if we lean on your understanding, not ours, we will find hope, help, and encouragement in the middle of doubts. We pray this all in your name, Jesus. Amen.